And welcome to the Rollwise Podcast, your show where we talk about things related to RPGs, games, and stuff. This week, we are actually going to be talking about a game. We had the fortune of playing with one of our new favorite DMs, and they had run us through a few games up to this point, but they had selected from their myriad of games, and they'd chosen Outgunned. Those of you who are not familiar with Outgunned, Outgunned it is a cinematic action RPG created by Two Little Mice. This is an Italian company, if my recollection serves, and it's Riccardo Sirignano and Simone Formicola. And if I pronounce those poorly, I apologize. I tried. It was inspired by action and heist movies like Die Hard, John Wick, James Bond, Kingsman, all that kind of stuff. And it uses a kind of a unique system called the Director's Cut. And so the Director's Cut is a dice pool of rolling six-sided dice to determine the outcomes of risky or dangerous tasks. But instead of trying to roll the highest roll, this is where it kind of sets itself aside, is you're actually trying to look for matching rolls. And so in this case, we were, rolling these sixes. You were trying to roll number ones, twos, threes, four, fives, and six. There are a couple of mechanics to kind of help augment this. They had adrenaline and spotlight. Adrenaline gives you +1 to your rolls, and you can use a spotlight to kind of like take over the scene for a few moments. But then if you fail, you have just as amazing Die Hard-esque type failures, where the failure keeps the action moving, but it is like epic and movie-esque type failings. And I think that the short adventure we ran was a fairly good introduction to the system. And so I know when I heard we were going to be playing Outgunned, I watched Beverly Hills Cop, Axel Foley, to get into the right mindset. So I was kind of curious, what were your guys' last action movies that you've recently watched?
The last one that I watched was Escape from LA.
The best movie ever.
The not great movie with Kurt Russell as Snake Plissken.
Snake Plissken's great.
But Snake Plissken is great. Escape from LA is not that great. Go watch Escape
Up
from
and
New
down.
Escape from New York. Escape from New York is the better film.
You watched the better movie, Brent. I think the last action movie I watched was The Beekeeper, and I still don't know how I feel about watching it, even though I do like Jason Statham. That movie was something.
I feel like, and this actually happens in the movie, but I feel like somebody read Queenslayer and was just like, I got to write a script. And that was how the movie became fiction.
Well, what's really interesting is they said, I think this is a really cool concept. And then somebody else said, greenlit,
yeah,
like more than one person was involved in the creation of that film.
I've seen worse movies, but I don't know if I've seen worse movies with bigger stars. It was,
well,
like there were parts that were okay, but man, you really talk about willful suspension of disbelief. Like you couldn't engage any logic whatsoever at any point in that movie.
Well, The Beekeeper was a force of nature, and I felt like, if anything, it was very Judge Dredd-esque, where like Dredd just kind of like saddles up and goes through whatever it is. You never see his face because he's the lawman.
That's a good action movie. The Dredd, not Judge Dredd. Dredd is a good action movie.
So the Sylvester Stallone one was less good than
It was less good than the Carl Urban one.
It was less good than Beekeeper.
What? I'm offended. I like the Judge Dredd movie from the 90s. I felt like Stallone was at his peak for those, like Demolition Man and Judge Dredd are some of my favorite guilty pleasure action movies.
Demolition Man is good. Judge Dredd is not.
Agree to disagree. But moving on. You should
watch it again.
I have. I watched it I think I just watched it about a year ago, honestly. It's got some parts in it. What, as in something's going to change after my 14th time watching the movie?
Hopefully.
Ouch. So moving on. But I think that people enjoy action movies, and there definitely is a certain type of action movie. There's a realistic action, but then there's like the kind of over the top action. And I think Beekeeper is very much like over the top action. Whereas I feel like Beverly Hills is slightly over the top action, but like it's like Beekeeper was weird because he just like walks into a place and starts punching people with phones and throws gasoline on everything and like.
Well, Beekeeper is great because it harkens back to like the '80s action movie where like Commando,
One-man army stuff.
Yeah, uses a like saw blades and a bat with nails in it to murder an entire government army in another country. So yeah, that's kind of why those movies are good. But anyways, we're far away from Outgunned the tabletop RPG now.
The point is that when you're thinking about cinematic action, Outgunned is attempting to replicate that in game form. Now, the thing that I thought was kind of interesting about it was, I mean, cinematic action, I think there's a lot of games that build themselves as that, but the way that you feel as you play the game, I felt like this did a really fantastic job. Every time we were rolling dice, it didn't feel like the dice rolls were cumbersome. They felt fun, like, and I mean, it was just weird to kind of like try to do something other than score the highest or lowest number. It was like, oh, try to get matches. I felt like I was playing a weird game of Yahtzee.
Well, yeah, it has that kind of Yahtzee feel, and like it engages you visually a little bit more because you're looking differently at the dice than you do in most games. So yeah, no, and it was quick. Like it was attributes, it was stat, skill, roll your dice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quick, and like I don't know what your percentage of failure on that is, but high success was pretty often. And then there's a push mechanic where you can re-roll a certain number, like your failed dice, for more.
And did we all have a skill that gave us a free re-roll on certain things?
Yes,
we did. Yeah. And so we actually played with the pre-generated characters through a scenario that was part of the quick start. And every character had I think they were called talents. Is that what they were called?
Yes, I believe so.
They were called talents that gave you a free reroll. Like, so for example, like my character's talent was every time he was called like a gunslinger or something like that. So anytime he was using, examining, or, firing a gun, he got a free reroll. And I think you guys had other talents. Do you guys remember what yours were that gave you free rerolls?
Mine was marksman. It was like yours, except with rifles and shotguns.
And mine applied to my sword. Anytime I used a sword.
Yeah. And so the cool part about it is that when you're getting a free reroll, you can take your dice and you can take those successes. You never risk losing anything. And I think the next part, when you talk about the reroll itself, that's a pretty interesting concept. But like the fact that you get a free reroll where you can say like, okay, well, you have one success. You want to try to get a higher grade of you want to get a higher grade of success because you have a pair, and you want to get a 3 of a kind or 4 of a kind. Sure. You can kind of just go for it, and there's no like consequences to this reroll. And the other thing about a free reroll is that even if you don't have any successes, you don't have to bet anything to try again. So you can actually try to dig success out of nothing. But the other cool part is that if you do have a partial success, maybe you get 2 of a kind, and really the 2 of a kind is a fail but kind of situation. Like, well, you didn't get enough successes to succeed, but you mitigated some of the outcome from the game master. You can actually like gamble and say, I'm going to go all in. And you bet your partial success with more dice, It's like you're just like,
the gambling mechanic was kind of cool too.
Yeah, push your luck ratchets the tension. It's surprising. Just the mechanic of re-rolling some of the dice pool, or in some cases all of the dice pool if you didn't like any of them.
Yeah,
but
it keeps things flowing. It contributes to feeling like you're in an action movie because your adrenaline pumps up a little bit every time you re-roll the dice.
Well, and the fact that you can go from partially succeeding to not succeeding at all, I think that's a lot of tension building right there. Cool.
Well, it is. Yeah, no, you can fail. Like you can make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you keep something, then your net is, well, what you had, right? That's the worst that can happen is what you already had. But if you re-roll everything, your odds of succeeding better go up because you're rolling more dice, but your odds of failure go up too. So
yeah, it was a neat little thing. Now, I think when I was looking at the quick start, like there does seem to be like extra dice that they use that have different specialized faces that have like you have skulls
Well, yeah, you have
Heart
symbols because
and
it's
symbols and stuff like that, as
Yeah,
opposed
you're just
to
matching the symbols as opposed to matching the D6 numbers.
yeah.
Mhm. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that they have their own little dice and everything like that. So yeah, so I think it was it was an interesting game from my perspective because I hadn't really experienced like a gambling mechanic like that in a game. Do you guys have you experienced another game with a similar kind of gambling feel like that is dice pool, but not just sixes win and stuff? Or
There's a bunch of board games. There's a lot of push your luck board games.
Well,
Where you have stuff and you give stuff up. In RPGs, I don't know that it's used as much, but
in
go
Free
ahead, Brent.
League, in like Facin, if you push for reroll, like and you don't like you won't fail, but if you don't get any more successes on it, isn't that like don't you take a wound or stress?
well, so if you fail a roll, right, in many other games, and if you are accepting a push your luck mechanic, usually pushing your luck if you fail the second time, then you get like a condition or something like
Yeah.
that. Usually, it turns into a mechanically disadvantageous situation.
Yeah, so I mean that's a gambling mechanic. Not quite as it doesn't feel quite as good as this one because you're basically hoping you do better. Whereas this is you're hoping you do like you already did it. You're hoping you do better than that. Like, you know, it's a little bit of a different feel, but that's kind of a gambling mechanic. I think that's the closest that I've gotten in an RPG.
Yeah, because I hadn't actually seen any like matching dice and all that. I guess we haven't obviously played every RPG, so I'd be curious if people out there had listened to or have an RPG suggestion that has kind of those like pressure, like those kind of gambling mechanic pressure luck kind of things. Because getting 3 of a kind was kind of a cool feeling. Getting 4 of a kind was a really fun feeling. I guess I understand why people go to Vegas. Like they roll the dice and see
Yeah,
what
if you're
happens.
winning.
Yeah, if you're winning, if you're losing, you don't understand why you go to Vegas. But yeah. So honestly, it was fun. And so
It was a lot of fun.
So what was your favorite part of the system from your perspective?
My favorite part of the system, I felt like one of the things that I really liked about the game is the fact that the dice pool system was quick and really kind of gave into that. It gave you that kind of frenetic action movie feel because there wasn't like initiative. It was like, okay, go is more how it was and roll some dice and like whoever was in front or said there was in front or took the lead, like you were the person that rolled, and it kind of gave into that kind of like frenetic feeling of an action movie, where my character Victor, who was the bounty hunter, was like doing computer stuff and you guys were engaging guards. Like that whole like dynamic was really, really cool and felt very much supported the feeling of the type of game that it was supposed to be, which I think is important from a rule set.
Nice. And Jeff, did you have something that stood out to you as a favorite component of the game?
My favorite thing was, I don't know, about 40 minutes into the game when I started figuring out that the rolls were going in our favor more often than not, and to quit being so slow, quit hesitating and trying to do the safe thing, and to try to do the action movie thing.
Yeah.
And let the dice, kind of happen. Once I started doing that, I really felt myself in the story. When I was trying to be safe and hide from cameras and move around sneakily, I didn't feel it as much. I honestly, I didn't. But once I started going, yeah, and then I'm going to tell Brent to brace himself and run up his leg and step off his shoulder and tackle this drone that's flying over us.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's not a tactical game. It's It's an action movie game. It's just do something. It's always going to be better than not doing anything.
Yes.
And once you get the hang of that, you feel a lot better. And just try things. Like if your skill's not that great. One other thing I liked about the mechanic is you could kind of have that fate moment where if you could justify it, that was what you could roll. Like if it was an attack thing and it's like, well, I'm not really trying to like punch them. I'm more trying to do this other thing, and you can use different skills. Like what did I do? Like instead of using like compute with the computer, instead of using something that would normally be like hacking, I used intelligence and know, because my character's a bounty hunter and I felt like he would know how to do basic checks on a computer to see if he could log into somebody's computer. And I rolled that. So I rolled that and I did well, and I got in the computer and got us information. And I think that stuff's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because I think the one mechanic that is, and you kind of made me think about it, because the spotlight mechanic, I don't think any of us actually use the spotlight mechanic. Do you think we use
right
it?
at the end? He had
just
us
at
in
the end.
spotlight,
He had us in the
just at
spotlight.
the end. None of us took it as the storyteller or whatever it's called in Outgunned. Mick gave us the spotlight on that last scene before we got out. And I thought that was neat. There were probably options to do that before, but I thought that made those particular things feel a little more special.
Yeah. Because I know, because of the character sheet, you could actually spend a spotlight and to do certain things. Like you could get an extreme success, you could save a friend, remove a condition, save a ride, or do whatever I want, as long as you and the director agree with that. And I think that's an interesting mechanic. I'm always curious, because it sounds like if you spend a spotlight, you can have like an instant win for a situation. Would you guys consider that to be overpowered in your perspective, or is that because of the limited nature of it, give your players the ability just to rock it out once in a while?
Go ahead.
I consider overpowered kind of a weird concept in a non-PvP game. You're just telling a story, so I don't think overpowered is necessarily a thing. And if somebody wants to say, I want to take the spotlight and tell you this part of the story, what happens, I think that's perfect. I think that's fantastic. Now that I think about it in retrospect, what I probably should have done is I probably should have used Spotlight when I was on the computer and just said, I'm getting all this information out of the computer because I know that I managed to find the password and I can find everything that I want to know. And we could have done it and that would have been very action movie moment, because and it would have been good because my character would have stood out a little bit, because as more of a knowledge guy, where we had a fighty guy and we had a shooty guy. So I think that's, spreading out the roles, but I think that's a cool mechanic, I think.
Yeah. Jeff, what about you? Do you think that kind of mechanic overpowered, interesting?
I thought it was very interesting. I think in this type of game that's trying to be very cinematic, where you're maybe not a superhuman, but you are an exceptional human, that you have the ability to do those, John Wick walking into a crowd, pointing the gun in 8 different directions and 8 different people dropping, and then him reloading a magazine. Right.
Yeah.
One-handed.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. And so in this game, I think it works. Do I think it's a mechanic that I would adopt for everything? No, but I think that there's probably even in a D&D game or a Pathfinder game, I think there's probably things other than the final confrontation, with the big bad, right? You could take out a couple of mooks or something like that, right? Lower level bad guys in a cinematic type thing by grabbing the spotlight. Because if I was the GM and the character tried to grab the spotlight to kill the big bad, I'd be like, and the big bad takes the spotlight from you. He had already foreseen that you were going to do this. You know what I mean?
The big bad knows.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But sure. I mean, could it be overpowered? Yes, but I agree with Brent. We're telling a story. We're not taking over the world. We're not saving mankind. It's in the right context. I think it's really well done, and it reveals something about your character that's kind of neat and gives you this cool feeling, and everybody else goes, "Oh wow, I didn't know your character could do that." That's
I think it's great for this style of game. It's great for that.
Yeah,
it's cinematic.
It's very suited for this.
Not super grounded in reality. Sort of action film, like the Beekeeper. I think you could do, if you did a 4-person game of Beekeepers, I think this would be a good system for it.
I can't ride my motorcycle off the side of the cliff while I'm wearing a parachute and then parachute onto a plane and then
in this game
do those Mission Impossible type stuff. Yeah, in this game you're expected to.
Yeah,
Well,
that
I
would
mean,
be
obviously, what else would you do?
exactly.
If
That
all
would
you
be
have is a
perfect.
motorcycle and a parachute to get on a plane, I mean, what else are you going to do? Or I haven't seen that Mission Impossible that I'm referencing. I've only seen the jump. I haven't seen the rest of it, so I don't fully know what he does. But yeah, if that's all you have, then obviously that's what you have to do in this
I
type
think
of
you
game.
just described every Mission Impossible movie. So
But it is interesting. It is interesting when you guys consider like because when I watched Beverly Hills Cop, I was just like, okay, this is at least gives me a taste of like how you can approach things. You don't approach things like you're made of paper mache. Obviously,
Right.
you approach things like it's a very pulpy. Like if I get beat up, because I'm gonna take my licks and the John McClane approach. You may be beat up, but you're still walking at the end, kind of thing. And I thought that's fun to play. I'm not sure like how a campaign style game of this would go. Like, I'm sure you could create a campaign with this.
I think you could.
But it does feel like, at least at the beginning and everything like that, it was a very fun introductory session. And like I could see this springboarding into a longer set of adventures. Or I thought it was really kind of a nice way to break up the pace. Like we played this game and it was just I don't want to call it a beer and pretzels game, because it's definitely more complicated than a beer and pretzels game, in my opinion, at least. But it was like, if you're playing D&D on one end and you're like, just want to break from D&D, this is just like,
Well, it allows one, because of its rules light. I would call this a rules light game, at least the quick start that we played. Because it's rule light and because it's an action movie. Like, let's be honest, action movies like Commando, Beekeeper, Demolition Man, John Wick, like those are guilty pleasure movies. Like, because the body count in those movies should make you feel bad for watching it. Like, because there's like they're like bombs of movies. Like John Wick is a bomb. Like,
you mean not everybody pulls up at a gas station with a minigun mounted in the back of the
right?
pickup?
Yeah, it's like, or just I'm just talking about body count. Like body count is like the amount of a small town. And so like they're guilty pleasure movies, and it kind of allows you to do that thing in like that you don't always like. It allows you to be a murder hobo and it be okay. Basically, like it allows you to just be like, I don't want to talk to this guy. I'm going to ninja kick him in the head and not feel guilty about it, because that's kind of the point of an action movie game. Does every scene need to be that way? No, but you are going to get scenes like that and they're going to be glorious. And that's kind of the point. It's like, it reminded me a lot of the few times I played Feng Shui, where it's like, if you have a character that's made to go through mooks, like you feel amazing when you're fighting mooks because they just mow down like in the millions. And that's what it's kind of like, it's that sort of thing where it's like, oh, this is like raw, just fun, as opposed to like, I need to tactically figure out what my character would do. You could have deep role playing moments, but that's not necessarily what the game's always about, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think that you can have the deep role playing moments regardless of the system. Like that system kind of, like being good role players, being fun role players, having clever interactions and stuff like that. You can have that anytime. And I think that was kind of funny in our situation where it's just like, the first thing I thought about was Han Solo trying to escape the prison block. It was just like, everything's fine. We're fine. How are you? Like, I was like, that's all I can think about right now when I'm trying to get out of here. You're like, why don't you come on down? I mean, I need help. Yeah, sure. Okay. Protocol. Sure. Whatever, man.
Yeah. Like, yeah. And I think that's what's cool. Like in general, I think that's what's cool about the game is like, you can have like, yeah, you can do that stuff outside the system, but that's all in the players, because the system isn't going to do anything like that.
Yeah.
Unless I guess you could probably have a face character that was just good at talking to people, like, and they had an ability that made them reroll charm, flirt type rolls. And that would be cool.
Well, and I think you can, and I think the way that this sets up is very much you can have a team type situations, or Scorpion. Do you guys remember Scorpion? Like that show? I've watched a little bit with my wife, and it was it had a very similar, like, each person was a specialist in their own way, but
Oh yes, I do know what show you're talking about.
all super smart. So
That was more of a brainy show than a punchy show, though.
it was very brainy. So, but you could have, but it had action in it.
Yeah, you can have action, and not all the action has to involve killing people, and
Punchy action is important.
They could all be Fast and the Furious.
I'm against other. No.
Yes, I'm punching them with this 5-ton safe I'm pulling behind my sports car.
You have brought up that which should not be named.
What? I didn't think Fast and Furious was that
movies,
bad.
Man, what, 3 billion?
Yeah, I know. And occasionally I just stare and say, "How are there 10 Fast and the Furious movies?"
I thought the first one was pretty good. I can't say that
there are highlights.
What about the other 9, Mike? How good are they?
I think arguably they're. I've watched like big fans have like breakdowns and argue about like ranking, like from 10 to 1 where everything falls, and I think there's 3 or 4 that you can make an argument for. I don't know, which one specifically, but it's rough. Some of them are bad.
Did they ever get into space?
Oh, yes, man, they got into space. No, I think one of the last 2 they got into space. It might specifically be the last one.
I haven't
seen 9 or 10, so
I was going to give it the benefit of the fountain doubt and say no, but
every action movie.
They brought in a nuclear submarine in what, 7 or 8?
I haven't watched any since. I don't know. I haven't. I think I watched the first 2,
and then because it was Fast and Furious, and then it was Tokyo Drift.
Tokyo Drift, and then Too Fast, Too Furious. And then I don't know what sort of
then
play
it kind of dropped off for you.
I don't know what the sort of play on words the third one was.
It honestly, Brent, it sounds like the next time you have a long weekend, you just get yourself some popcorn, and you and Morgan and your dad sit down and.
I don't think so, man.
20 straight hours of Fast and Furious movies.
Not straight. You can break it up.
No, it's got to be adjusted straight. Like just the watch-a-thon. Like I think when I was at like one of the movie theaters had like a Marvel like straight just like preparation for one of the Avengers movies. They were like, we're showing all the Marvel movies in order, so come and spend $100 and we'll set you up in our theater and get ulcers on your body from sitting in the chair for 24 hours straight.
Yeah, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, but I mean, some people probably enjoyed it. I mean,
I'm sure some people had a blast.
Yeah, but that's kind of besides the point. So, I think that when looking at the game, the biggest thing was probably the directors. The way that the dice pool goes, the high stakes combat and everything like that. I think it delivers on the promise to have the players do amazing things. And so I think the director's cut actually provides a very fun kind of niche way to play an action movie type thing. I would honestly play more of that style of game. Like if our one shot continued on to a second and third adventure, I'd play more, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely did make me want to play more.
Yeah,
for sure.
It did. I had fun. I think I made this comment when we sort of did our after action report, but I had visions of what we were all doing in my head. Like I could see it perfectly. I probably didn't see exactly what you guys saw, but that doesn't always happen in some of the games we play. Like I keep track of stuff well enough, but like the things that we were doing, like charging those guys with the riot shields and stuff, like I saw all of that in my head, and it was kind of glorious.
Yeah, you started to get a real perspective of. Yeah, no, I was doing that too. Like I could visualize the action movie moments in my head, which does, like you said, doesn't happen all the time. It definitely happened in this game.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, we were really into it by the end. Like we had started to unlock some things and figure some stuff out.
Yeah,
I feel I'm not going to speak for you.
I think it's definitely a game that if you played it more, like you could really fall into that. just that action movie feeling and really feel cool as a character.
Yeah. So I think that in terms of gameplay and everything like that, I think it's pretty easy to get into. Obviously, we haven't read the super full. We've just talking about our play experience and everything like that. But if anybody is interested, they can pick up the book at Drive Through RPG. You can pick up the PDF there. I think they're probably physical copies somewhere. I think Brent's looking for a physical copy right now, but he hasn't found one.
Yeah, I think the Kickstarter was like last November or something. So
yeah,
I had a lot of fun. And if you're looking for a game like to run as a one shot or just a couple of sessions, I think it's pretty easy to pick up.
Or if you need a break, like if you need a break from like if you need a break from like super tactical, like if your players are super tactical or you're tired of running super tactical games or you need a break from that sort of thing, I think this is a great game to step into.
Yeah, it is. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and say thumbs up, pick it up, have fun being action heroes, and this is a great game to do it.
Yeah.
So
I just want to shout out to Mick for running the game. It was awesome as usual. He's a really good GM, so much appreciated. I know we tell him that every time, but
yeah,
doesn't hurt to fit it in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was awesome. It was a ton of fun. So if you guys want to let us know your experience with Outgunned, or if you have any other games that experience these kind of interesting dice roll mechanics, let us know. We're interested in playing other games, exploring the genre, and yeah. Jeff, how can they talk to us outside of the comment section, though?
Yeah, they look for @Rollwise on Facebook, Threads, or Twitter, or they just email us, rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And as always, thank you everybody thank you everybody for being here with us. Thank you for following along. Thank you for accepting my inability to speak English sometimes. We appreciate you all. We hope you roll. My brain is shutting down. We hope you roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Yeah.